We have been talking about our values the last couple of weeks. See, sorry, give me a minute here. And we started out by saying that Jesus was our message, and then people are our passion, generosity is our privilege, excellence is our spirit, and this week is servant leadership. And so to put all of this kind of in perspective about whys and what forths and where we're goings and all of that is, you got to have some values. You got to have some reasons why you do what you do. And some parameters about why you do them. So as we go through these are some characteristics, you could almost say, some things that we as a body, as a people, as we grow, as we point our church in a new direction, and we've been going in a new direction, these are some values that we want. You know, the good thing about sharing and coming up with values is sometimes you can look at them and go, I might not be doing real good on this. Like some of you this morning might have been going, you know what? I don't know if I really like Jesus. Do we really have to have Jesus as a value? Yeah, we do. We're the church. But as we go through some of these things are not things that we're going to be good at. You know, when we talked about generosity, it wasn't just about being generous with our money, but with, as Joy had said, being forgiving and caring and all of these other things we can be generous with, or are we stingy with them? And it's important for us to be reminded of these things because it's really easy to fall back away from them and be like, you know, nobody's going to know if I'm not. Nobody will know if people aren't important. But people are important. And it's important for us to remember that people are important because they're important to Jesus, because that's what he came for. No matter anything else that goes on about thises and that's and governments and jobs and callings and all of that, people are the only thing going to heaven. That's it. Other things can be important, but not as important as the fact that our job, when he left, he said, go make disciples. Don't just get people to come to church, but get people that then will turn around and look like me. So our job, establishing a church, building a church, its purpose is to make disciples, to make people look like Christ. And that's hard because as much as we love Christ, we don't always want to look like him. We want to look like him in the easy areas. Sometimes we want to look like God when it comes to judgment. Fire and brimstone and Sodom and Gomorrah. We know some people we want to call fire from heaven down and just lick them up. Get them to heaven or hell quickly. And so as we establish these things and we talk about them, we've got a couple more, 2 more I think. And then what we're going to do is we're going to shift and we're going to talk about why there is a fivefold. Why are there apostles? Why are there prophets? Why are there pastors and teachers? What is their purpose? And evangelists. What is their real purpose? Instead of us to just say it's the fivefold ministry and we believe in it. But what is their true purpose and what are they really supposed to be doing versus what we have decided would be good for them to do? And over the seasons in church, you can look and we shift to where, you know, we call this person an evangelist. We call this person this, but what did God really call those offices to do? So we're going to look at that. And then we're going to take that with these values and say, are those fivefold working to bring out these values in us? You see, because those two things should be working together. And then we're going to talk about the fruits of the Spirit after that. You're like, whoa, what? Not today, don't worry. But we're going to see that when we allow the Holy Spirit to use us and we surrender, and those fruits, what is the purpose of the fruit? To just have it? Because we would think, oh, these fruits sound really good. I want to eat a little of that. I want some peace. But what if the fruits are really designed for others? For us to produce the fruit for others, not for ourselves. But we just live, as John said this morning when the overflow of it. That if we walked in so much peace that it overflowed over us and onto other people and it just oozed out of us. I'm going to talk about my son for a minute, because I always do. It's been a couple weeks, but he uses this soap body wash stuff. What's it called? He's not even going to say it. Sorry. Sasquatch, is that right? Not your head? Yeah. And let me tell you what, it works. It smells, I can smell it. I mean, we know, and it's not bad. It's not like overpowering, but you can smell it. I can smell it when I get in the shower. I'm like, but I'll tell you what it's done. I don't even know if I really like the smell. But when I get in there, I'm like, and the other day I was like, to where I'm thinking, you know what, I want a little bit of this. It's starting to smell good. I'm starting to like it. And so if we can produce these fruits and allow the Holy Spirit to produce, what would that happen? So today we're going to talk about a difficult one a little bit. We're going to talk about servant leadership. That's a bad word. You know, there's lots of leaders. There's good leaders and bad leaders at the end of the day. But there's a lot of people that are leaders. A lot of people want a title so they can tell people what to do. So everybody says, amen. But they do. And most likely in your life, you've had a good leader and a bad leader at some point. And so hopefully you've learned some things from that. Now, understand that just because the leader tells you when you've done something wrong or they tell you something that you don't like doesn't mean they're a bad leader. Okay? There are lots of people out there that teach leadership principles. I mean, Google that and we'll be here all day long talking about people that are teaching people how to lead. But the greatest leader of all is Jesus. That's right. And so Jesus' way and principle of leading was serving. And so in church, in work, in your life, if we would adopt the attitude of serving. Now you see, that gets touchy because who wants to serve? Now some people do. Some people have a natural bend and gift, you could say, that they are just servants. And we can probably think of them and they're like, you know what, I can think of this person and they're just a natural servant. And then there's a whole nother group that serving is the bad word. And it's not that you don't want to, but you don't want to. And you have to bend yourself and your flesh is like, do I really have to? And then you add in some personality and some other traits and it's just tough. But would God have, and Jesus, would Jesus have modeled something for us that we couldn't do? Could he say, I want you to do this, but I know you can't do it? No. Now, the key is, he gives us somebody else called the Holy Spirit to help us do the things that we can't naturally do. So the person that it's just natural, they love to serve. Okay, but you know what we found out over life with people? Okay, they may be strong in servant leadership, but they may be weak in generosity. So we all have them. So if you're sitting here going, I got this one made, just wait, next week's coming. We're gonna get you on something. And so when we look through the Bible and we look what Jesus did, he came to serve. And this really was not what a lot of the Jews wanted. They were looking for a leader that was going to come in and overthrow the Roman Empire, and them days of being under the Roman rule was over. And what we have a tendency to do when we allow our flesh to get in charge is we start talking about positions and authority and power. And then we flip and we go, oh, those are bad words, and so they're not okay. But it's interesting, there's a story where two disciples were walking, and they're having this conversation, and Jesus hears it. And they're talking about it. I can just imagine in their mind that they're getting a little heated about it. And the conversation comes to light about who's the greatest in the kingdom. Me or him? Now, one of the things I love about us reading the Bible is we get to look at it and look at how foolish they are, right? We're like, I mean, honestly, guys, if we were all in the room with Jesus and we were walking with him, are we going to argue about who's the most important? We'd all in here say no, right? But yet, what do? We just do those things anyway, but we all act like that if that was me, there's no way I would have done doing that. There's no way. But we do it today in our life. We worry about these things. And so what does Jesus do? The interesting thing is he doesn't say that what they're talking about was wrong. He didn't say, whoa, you fleshly disciples, seeking leadership roles and being up on top, wanting to know who's the greatest. No, he says, let me answer your question. This is you want to be the greatest in the kingdom. You know what you do? You serve. He didn't say there's not a way to be a pecking order, that to strive after doing great and being a leader in those things. He didn't even address that issue. He said, if you really want to be great in the kingdom, serve. Now I know, probably they sat there and said, well, that isn't the answer we wanted. Have you ever asked God a question and you got an answer you didn't want? Or you didn't get it the way you wanted? Because God's like, I'm looking past what you're really looking for, and I'm looking at the heart of the issue here. Because he really wanted his disciples to understand, look, if you will not worry about how and who is the greatest, and you will worry and focus on just loving and serving people, you will find that it will naturally become that way. You won't have to ask for it. You won't have to worry about it, because now the heart has shifted. And that's the important thing about all of this stuff. When we talked about generosity and we talk about money and everybody gets a little bathroom check. God isn't after those things because he's always after the heart. I was talking to somebody this week. We were talking about when the prosperity message was really at its peak. And the bad thing about it is not sowing seed, because that is a biblical principle. You sow seed, you reap. It's biblical. What digs your seed up out of the ground is the heart and the motive. And that's what was wrong with the prosperity message, is we had people that were just giving to get. And that's not God. It's not like, if I keep giving here, okay, God, you owe me now, and keeping this running tab about how much money they've given, and now God owes me because I've done this. When it's a heart issue. When your heart is, okay, God, I got you because I gave here, instead of saying, God, here's, take some more. Take some more. Take it all, God. And God's like, no, I like that heart. Here, give him some more. Funnel more over there. You just got to raise your work. No. I want to give more away. Not because you want to get more, but because your heart is right. So when it comes to servant leadership, when it comes to leading, God wants people whose hearts are right, who were focused on meeting needs of the people. And is that easy? No, it's not. You see, the thing about our values are they shouldn't change. We shouldn't serve and lead, or we shouldn't be servant leaders to people we like, right? It shouldn't be something that we do when it's easy, because these people are nice and they pat me on the back and they tell me how good I did. You see, being a servant leader means you serve those that don't want to be served. It means you serve the ones that you don't like. Over the years, I've heard this and I've said this. Let me ask you this. When it comes to your walk, you should have somebody that's, I say above you, that your mentor, that you go to, that you talk to, that's your kind of upline person, that a spiritual, whatever you want to call them, father, leader, pastor, person. You should have somebody. Then you should have somebody that you're on equal ground with, that you're walking and growing and sharpening with. But then I think it's always important to have somebody in your life that brings nothing to the table. That they're just there and they need something from you. That they're the cup. That nobody knows about it and nobody may ever know about it, but that you're meeting a need, and when you walk away from that, there's nothing other than you know you've served the Lord. There's no reward in the fact of, I got something out of this. Come on. And that's hard because we typically want something out of everything. What is the benefit? You see, servant leadership should become our identity. You see, it was one of the last things Jesus did to his disciples, was he sat down and he washed their feet. Now, I don't know if you've ever had your feet washed. Well, I mean, obviously, if you guys shower and bathe, you wash your feet. It's a little different when you wash your own feet versus having a service where somebody is doing a foot washing. It is very humbling. And so here Jesus is saying, look, guys, I want you to get a visual of what this is really about. That we're so quick in church and in things to build it to look like this. And Jesus is like, look, I want to flip it upside down and realize that all of us that are up here, the more we become, the more we push in, the more we hear from the Lord, the more we become it, the more we turn around and go, how can I serve? How can I serve? We talked a couple weeks of when we talked about excellence, and we talked about my guy at a restaurant that will not be named, and his joy for making sandwiches, or lack thereof, and his, it's funny because when I sit there and he makes my sandwich, and the lettuce gets on there, and the olives, and the foot long of mayonnaise when I ordered a 6-inch sandwich from start to start, and wiping it off, we talked about excellence with that I'd never seen it, and I told Joy, I said, I think I'm, because there's 2 restaurants in town in Brenham. I don't go to the one that he's normally at. And I said, I might just have to go over and record it, because I don't think people really get, because I like to exaggerate a little bit in some stuff, but I am not in this. I mean, he really did, when he made the sandwich, started about this far before the sandwich with the mayonnaise, and just went all the way past through the sandwich and then on some, and then just wiped it off the paper. Not only did I believe he does not operate in a spirit of excellence, not really much probably in the servant leadership either. I don't know if the service industry is his niche, but I do understand nowadays it is hard to find anybody to show up to work. So sometimes you take 12 inches of mayonnaise when you only need 6. You get what you can get. But why? Probably because there's something going on in this man's heart. I mean, we all can think of somebody that is grumpy, mean, wouldn't help. When you go to your restaurant, there's 2 things usually that are going to stand out and determine if you come back. Mm-hmm. Good food and good service. And usually, good food can win out over bad service for a short period of time. And Ben knows, because he does meat market and has to manage with that, right? And bad service and good food don't always work well, does it? No. And it's hard. And it's hard to get employees to understand that. That friendliness. And we've talked about this, we'll plug them. Chick-fil-A. Man, we would line up for Chick-fil-A for anything. They could probably be selling us anything and we would go. Just because why? We feel like a king, and it's good. And it's a chicken sandwich and french fries. Not knocking it, because it is good. But there's something about the way you feel when you're there, right? You feel like and nowadays, the way everything goes up, it is almost $100 for a chicken sandwich. Because everything is going up. But what? Their heart towards service. We tied that in with excellence when we talked about Disney too. That Disney makes sure you feel important. It doesn't matter how big of a badge he's got when he's there. If you ask a question, he's not going to be, let me go find somebody. They're gonna answer no matter what, because they're about serving you. Now, we know that Chick-fil-A and Disney are all about serving you because they want your money. So we understand that. We understand if you go to a restaurant, they're going to have a server there that is going to ask you what you need, how can they take care of you, what would you like today, and they're going to write it down. They're going to go make sure they get it, they're going to bring it back, and if it's not right, you're going to be like, said no cheese on my cheese enchiladas. And you gave me cheese. I'm sorry, sir. You let me go fix it. Yes, I said no cheese on my cheese enchiladas. And they're going to go back and they're going to scrape the cheese off. They're going to wrap up a tortilla and bring it back out to you and go, here you go, sir. But as a body, as a church, what does it benefit us to serve people? Because typically, the level of servanthood, the problem we've ran into is we think of, at a restaurant, who's the most important person in the restaurant? We would typically say the guy that makes the most money is the cook, not the server or the greeter. We put those things at a lower level because we think the importance is not that important. You know what? Doesn't matter, they're just a server. But as we just talked about, if they give us a bad serving, what do? We go somewhere else. I'm not coming back here and spending my money. So as Christians, as a church, do we have a heart to serve? Great leaders don't set out to be leaders. They set out to make a difference. It's not about them or a role, but it's about the goal and the heart of servanthood. How many of us want to be a great leader? A lot of times we have a tendency to lead the way we were led. Mm-hmm. The model that we were shown. My second job in high school was for Kenny Shoes. Anybody remember Kenny Shoes? Anybody my age and older will remember Kenny Shoes. We all like Kenny Shoes. Yes, they sold all kinds of different shoes for different people, and tennis shoes. And I worked in Willowbrook Mall.
I did.
Yeah, see, you did say. And I remember I went in to get shoes, and there was this. His name was Ken Dotson, and he was moving around. He was the only guy working, and he was the manager. And I was in between jobs. I left the job before that, and I'm getting shoes for school. And I'm like, man, you're busy. He said, yeah, I'm working at all my own, cashiering and everything. And I'm like, wow, well, why are you doing that? He goes, well, there were some issues with everything going on before, and so they just cleaned house. And this gentleman was really good at, going in and cleaning out and bringing in a new staff and retraining. And I said, whoa, wow. I said, well, you need some help? He said, yeah. And okay, and I'm thinking, I don't know anything about shoes, other than I know how to put them on. And so I asked him, I said, well, okay, what do you want me to do? He goes, can you start tomorrow? Yeah, I guess so. I don't have a job. I said, but I don't know anything. He goes, I don't want you to know anything. Because I'm going to teach you everything you need to know. And he taught me everything about sales and people and how to relate to people. And he was just amazing. And he said, for the first 2 weeks, no matter how busy he was, he said, don't do anything but follow me. Just follow everywhere I go. And so and I just stood there and I held the backpack because he had stuff in the backpack he was trying to sell. And I know people are looking at me, can I get a size 6? Can we get that in a size 6? Because I couldn't help. But I watched and I learned how to communicate to people and how to listen. And he would then sit down when we were done and there wasn't 5 million people in the store and there was only 2, then he would go back and he would coach everything that he did. And did you hear when they did this? And they did it. And I'm like, oh. And so he taught me. So we can have good leaders and we can have bad leaders. Now let me tell you this about a bad leader. Just because you have a bad leader doesn't mean you have to be a bad leader. Mm-hmm. It's all in our mindset. You can have a bad leader and go, you know what? I am not doing this, this, and this. Now we can take that in lots of areas. Over the years, you might not have had a dad. You might have had a bad dad. Does that mean you have to be a bad dad? No, it means you can go, you know what? I do know this. I'm not going to be this, and this. And then you can look and go, but I do want to be this, and this. So it's perspective of the way we look at it. When we come to serving, we don't have to be a bad leader if we had a bad leader. Now, a good leader will expose a bad leader by their actions and their work ethic. You might think you have a good leader till you get around a good leader. You might think you're a good leader till you get around a good leader and you're like, ooh. And the great thing in all of this of servant leadership is unless you're dead, you can change. So everybody in here, you're still qualified. You can correct things in our life, in our leadership styles, and constantly be learning. Did you know this, that 75% of people leave workplaces, churches, moose lodges? 75% of people leave a place because of leadership. 75%. Man, that's rough. Another misconception in servant leadership is being spiritual does not make you a good leader. You can be super spiritual but not lead yourself out of a room. A humbling thing is to say, I am not. Fill in the blank. We all want to be blank, but acknowledging that I am just not. Because the Bible even tells when Moses and them, when he had leaders, it talks about different categories. Some are leaders over 10, hundreds, thousands, kajillions, gazillions, whatever. But there was categories. And sometimes we're a category of a 10, but we think we're the category of 1,000. But usually there are certain things that you do if you're leading 10 that you can't do when you lead big. There's some things you have to change. And I've seen it a lot in churches because there's a reason churches are small and churches are big. They think different. I remember when we went to Lufkin, which was a large church, it was about 2,000 people, they thought differently. And it was interesting to see a different mindset. They didn't do church different. We still served, we still did all those things, but it was a different way of thinking. The leaders were required to do different things because we had a larger group we were responsible for. So understand, it's okay to not be able to do it that. It doesn't mean you're not a good leader. It means lead at your capacity of what God has called you to do. And so often we want to be. We turn on the TV and we see whatever it is, if it's a preacher or it's something, or we go somewhere, go, I could do his job better. Be careful. Being a servant leader is never about us, and it's always about people. You know, this ties so good into all of these other principles, especially if we would just be reminded that people matter. Just think about that. Just matter of fact, just say it with me. People matter. Not just the people that I like, but the hurting people. Because you know the one thing about hurting people? Hurt people hurt people. Yes. And you know what happens when you're trying to help a hurting people? Ben's trying to help me and I'm hurting, and I keep hurting him. That's right. It's like, well, go on down somewhere else. They may take advantage of you. They're kind of like teenagers. They're going to drink all the Kool-Aid in the kitchen, not fill up the container. Eat the last bit of your chips. Garden salsa. Might happen in our house. Might not. I don't know. But it's hard. It is easy for us not to be servant leaders. It is easy. It would be so much easier if we just said, you know, people don't matter. We were joking this morning, me and Dave again, about putting on the sign, please don't come. Just go somewhere else. But we laugh about that, but think about that, because what happens when we get more than 2 or more? Somebody's going to get mad at somebody. It's in our DNA or something. I mean, we get cranky with each other and we get fussy. It's easier. We just tell everybody, not this Sunday, maybe next. And we have all these things that we joke about in church about somebody parking in your spot or sitting in your pew. But we all know that may not be it, but there's something. You got a golden calf somewhere. It might be a slotted spoon back in the back kitchen that we threw away. And when you go back there and look for it, you go, oh my God. They threw away that slotted spoon that we gave 15 years ago with another 25 that are in that drawer. Just saying. It is. Who's been in church more than a year? Okay, you will know churches will fight over painting walls, carpet, lights, flowers, the songs we sing. Right now, some of y'all are in here are already mad that it's too hot, and the rest of you are mad that it's too cold. I'm just telling you. When we went to Katie yesterday, we were looking at cars, just because, I like cars, and so we're looking at them and sitting in them, and I had to text Joy because I lost her. I didn't know what car she was in, and this lady gets out of the car next to me, scared the mess out of me. I mean, she just did. I didn't know there was anybody in it, and I'm looking, and she opened the door. It's like, whoa! But, they have dual climate controlled in the car. That's what we need in church. You guys could get your own little vent and control your own. Look at y'all. See, some of y'all are like, oh, can we do that? Look at that. Take that up with the board. I think that's good. Yes, you can. It's called this. There you go. But if we've been in church long enough, we know that what? If we have a potluck, somebody's not going to like what is out there. It's people. You know what we do when we get home? We do the same thing with family. Are we willing to serve? It's important to understand that we can all serve. We're not too old. We're not too important. In Lufkin, there was a gentleman that had the parking lot thing. You come in and you can park right here. I can't think of what you call that. We don't have one of those where you get to park wherever you want. We don't have a guy tell you where to park. But there we did. We had a guy that comes in and come on right on in here and park in spot 604. Thank you, sir. And if it's raining, you got in a little golf cart thing and they took you up there. But this guy was a multimillionaire with a very, very, very large business. And people were shocked that he would help park cars. Because, oh my God, you own this big, huge business and all this stuff. Why would you park cars? Because he was there to serve. And his gifting might not have been somewhere else, but he was going to do something. And he served. And so it's important to understand we're never too old, we're never too important, we're never too valuable. It doesn't matter what you do outside these walls, we're never too big to serve. I understand this though, but if you ain't helping, you ain't helping. A servant leader is a person that is always looking for an opportunity. Hang around long enough and you'll see. I should have got one. I should have brought a broom in here.
Oh, yeah.
What's he saying? You like brooms? Lorenzo loves brooms. I'm going to get him one for Christmas. That sounds like a bad gift. But if you want to find out real quick, we go, hey, you know what, guys? Hey, Ben, can you go get the vacuum? We got a vacuum in here. And you know what will happen? Hey, we got to go. It's time to go. It's time to go. Hey, we need somebody to door greet. We need somebody to help. Are we takers or are we givers? Harry Truman said this: you can do anything if it doesn't matter who gets credit. Boy, how much different would the church and the kingdom and our community look if it didn't matter who gets credit? Nothing wrong with sharing when we do things. I'm not saying you can't share and things of that nature, but wow, what if we just all remember the story of the paralyzed guy that drug himself to see Jesus? Y'all remember that one? Yeah, y'all don't, do you? Because he didn't. Somebody took him. I know somebody else thinking, that's a good way for anybody that's kind of new to the church. The story about the guy that drug him, he's making stuff up. No. 4 people picked up the corner of the mat and took him. What if somebody said, certainly, I'm not taking him. No. Now, this is not another always. This is not absolute, but you know, when you we'll use cars since we looked at cars. When you look at cars, and you go to a Hertz rental car place that sells their rental cars, you know the difference between those cars and your car? Who's rented a car? Who's rented a car when they were 25 or 30? You know they have an age that you have to be to rent a car. You know why? Yeah. Responsibility, but also, you know how a 21-year-old drives?
A car
That ain't theirs?
Yeah.
Yeah, see, now we're all clicking. We're going, oh, yeah. You know, what do you tell your little kids when they get in the car? Hey, you don't slam it so hard. You see, we all know those things. Y'all are doing. You get a brand new car, you park at the end of the parking lot. What your kid do? They park right up there by the people denting it. Ding, ding, ding. Well, I was up close. We treat our things better. Now, cars may not be your thing. You could care less about cars. But I promise you, we sit at the table long enough, and I'm going to find out what's important to you. I'm going to find out what your baby is. What you take super good care of. What you won't let nobody touch. That's really important. Because you own it and you take care of it and you have pride in it. Don't touch it. Grandma's glasses up in the cabinet. Do you ever use them? No, we don't use them. Okay, and that's okay. But I love cars, so if I bought a very, very, very expensive car, it is not sitting in the garage. I am driving that baby till the tires come off, because that is what it was born to do. But we take care of things that we have ownership in. Do we have ownership in our relationship with the Lord? Do we have ownership in the church? Do we have ownership? Because we will treat things differently. We'll take pride in it. We'll do things like we talked about last week with excellence. The highest title. You want to know the highest title in the Bible? Here we go. In Joshua chapter 1, it says right here, God himself says, Moses, King of Israel, O Lord, imparter of the sea. No. He does not. Moses, O stutterer. It's good to see you. No. He says, Moses, my servant. Now, we all love Moses and talk great about Moses and what Moses did. And God called him servant. And maybe God is not trusting you with anything in his kingdom because you're not trustworthy. If I gave you the nicest car you would love to have, whatever it is, price is not an issue. Now you've got it in your mind what you'd like. Oh yeah, leather seats, heated steering wheel, sunroof. Now, take that. Who would you not let borrow your car? Fred's just looking at his wife. But who would you not trust something with because they're not trustworthy? And we see that over and over throughout the Bible, that God looks for good stewards. He looks for good stewards of things. There was a guy, we know the parable of the talents, and somebody buried it in the ground. And God's like, oh, you did what? Well, I didn't. He wants good stewards. So with our time and our effort, we talked about being generous with it. Are we servants? Do we think of other people first? You see, it's really easy to only think about ourselves. For you to be a great leader, for you to be a servant leader, something in you has to die. Because our natural instinct is to want to put ourselves before other people. Me, 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 me. And sometimes what we'll do is we'll do me, 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 and we'll shift it and make it look like, oh, me, me, me. I'm serving, but we're serving with a selfish heart. I'm just going to serve. Something in us has to die. So I ask you this morning, if you bow your heads and close your eyes for a minute, and just ask yourself, Lord, am I being a good steward? Have I put you first? The Bible says that if I would seek ye first the kingdom, where can I be a better servant leader? Who can I serve? Who can I show the love of Christ to by just simply serving them? But Lord, they don't deserve to be served. Who can I show the love of Christ to? By serving. Unconditional love. Unconditional serving. So Father, I ask this morning, as we go out this week, that we would take where we're at in these values, that we would realize that you are our message, that you're all that matters. That people, Lord, that you would give us divine encounters this week. That people would come across our path, that we can share you, Lord. That we would have an excellent spirit in what we do. That we would have the mindset of giving our best. That we would be generous with our love, our forgiveness, our time. And Lord, as we leave today, that we would find places that we can serve. Serve our neighbors, serve our family, serve our church community, serve our community. And so we ask all this in Jesus' mighty name. Amen. I need some help if anybody wants to help. Just kidding. That was a test. No. Thank you.